Everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Luan Wise and I've got Dr. Tom Bowden-Green. And we're going to be talking about their new book, Marketing and Psychology, Understanding Customer Behaviour with the ABC Approach, which is it out on Routledge now?
Yeah, it was out at the end of January.
Okay.
So published through Routledge, but obviously also available on Amazon and Blackwell's and Waterstones and
okay.
Other
And I'm just going to cover up Tom's face for a second. Sorry about this, Tom. There is actually if you scan the QR code, there is actually it's 20% off, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm just going to leave that up for a couple of minutes, and then I'll let it go, and I'll bring it back at the end. Luan, where can people find you?
So you can find us online. Well, we do exist in the real world as well, but we are both very active on LinkedIn. So you can search either our names on LinkedIn. And actually, as part of our journey of writing the book, we created a whole website around it. It's www.marketingandpsychology.com, which is updated at least once a week, 2 or 3 times a week, with resources, the events that we're doing, and a newsletter as well. So always lots of fresh content on there about what's happening in the world of research around the marketing and psychology topics.
Excellent. Thank you. Talk to us about the inspiration behind the book.
Well, there are loads and loads of psychology theories out there and loads of great books and podcasts and all sorts of resources that people can access. But I was struggling personally in my teaching and in my research to find one place where all of this was collected together. So the inspiration really was to bring together lots and lots, there's at least 400 different theories in our book. We brought it all together. But the other thing that we wanted to make sure that we were delivering was a way of actually applying those theories in some kind of structure, some kind of order. So there are, there's great books, Richard Shotton and Bob Cialdini and people like that have written really good books, but actually understanding what order to put the theories in and which bits of your marketing strategy to apply a theory to it takes a bit of thought. So we've actually structured the book in such a way that we present some theories in the first section, which is all about audience. Then we present some different theories where we talk about branding, and then some different theories altogether when we think about how to actually present a price and choice of products and services. So it's lots and lots of theories in one place, but in a structure.
It is that as well. Yes. You itemize it, and I love the fact that you do actually bring that all together. Talking about your the ABC approach. So most marketers are familiar with the traditional sales funnel, but your ABC approach focuses specifically on audience, brand perception, and choice. How does the framework help marketers move beyond gut instinct and into evidence-based strategy?
So there's a few things here. So yes, it is a funnel structure, which some people agree with. Some people might challenge that the structure is messier than a pure funnel. And it was writing the book, and for anyone that's written a book or thinking about writing a book, there's the words, and then there's the structure and the flow and how you present it to the audience. And actually that's kind of, we'd almost got a first version of the book. I think we were on like 60, 70,000 words before we got to the structure and the funnel. All these theories were there, but as Tom said, it needed to be presented to the audience in a way that this was really usable. And that's actually why we co-wrote the book, so that we were bringing together theory from Tom's academic background, myself as a practitioner, and it was literally at least 2 days in front of a whiteboard with post-it notes, kind of rearranging everything to get that logical structure and how people can apply it. Your question, Tim, about kind of gut instinct. Well, actually, readers of the book, and when we've presented so far, there will be some theories that you'll kind of nod along to and go, yeah, I'm doing that, or I'm aware of that, maybe didn't know the name for it or really thought that they had an academic background. And then, of course, there is lots of theories with lots of very long names as well that you might think, oh, I wasn't aware of that one and I could apply it. So it's very much a dip in and out of the book, maybe when you're updating your strategy, doing a new campaign plan, and just maybe trying to find something that will just make small incremental differences to how your campaign lands, how your audience receives it, how they choose you versus a competitor.
Yeah, when I read it, I thought it was very much a book that you'd leave on you'd want to have on your desk.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where you'd go, I need to look up that, because even though you may have there may be a particular approach, you're not necessarily thinking about it, or you may be you're looking at it and going, if I do that, what is the impact, or could I do it better? Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. So there are some great psychology books out there. Malcolm Gladwell, for example, has written a lot of great books, which are real page turners, very easy to digest. This isn't designed to be a book that you read from beginning to end, although I do know a few people that have tried to read it beginning to end. So
I've read it from beginning to end.
Fair play. But it is meant to be more of a reference book. When you need some inspiration of things that you could do to increase your creativity when it comes to brand perception, for example, then you go to that chapter. And when you need to think about how to present pricing, you go to that chapter. So it's really something to dip in and out of. Even I would struggle to remember 400 theories in one go. So you do need to have it on your desk and just sort of dip in, maybe put Post-it notes and things, and have it as a resource.
In your section, sorry, Luan.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say the Post-it notes I'm fine with, and I don't know, it's World Book Day. Let's talk about books on desks. Having it as a reference guide, I know that some people write in their books, like underline things, have things in margins, and I think it is one of those books, even though for me that slightly terrifies me of folded corners and writing in it. But I think there's also this value in having the index, because again, it might be that we hear so often in conversations, this theory, we hear them on podcasts, and actually just being able to then turn to the index of the book and go, let's look this up and see what this one actually is. So kind of two ways of using it, I think.
In your section on audience, you mentioned that marketers are often bad at estimating the basic values and drivers of mainstream behavior. Why is grouping by psychographic worldviews more predictive than standard demographic makers like age or location?
I think I'm generally not in favour of broad generalisations. I think the danger is if you say, that people from, I don't know, a certain location behave in this way, or people of a certain age behave in this way, you end up not seeing the nuances in that data. So we talked with Luan and I debated about whether to talk about things like generations, for example. And I think some of those demographic categories are just a bit too broad. And actually, when you break it down and think about the way people think, there's more detail that you can overlay on top of those demographics. I mean, one of the common examples that people often cite is that, a few years ago, then Prince Charles, now King Charles, and Ozzy Osbourne had the same demographic profile, but actually they thought very differently and behaved very differently. It's a good example. But other things like personality traits can be overlaid on top of demographics, therefore, to explain how people are different as individuals. And I often talk to students, for example, who are broadly in the same demographic group within whichever class or module they're studying, and talk to them about how they are different between themselves, and they all recognize that. So when you think about it, actually demographic, although there are certain products that might be just generally built for a certain demographic group, and that's always going to be the case, the way that you do your marketing communication can still be a bit more nuanced.
You dive into the personality traits like the big five, but you also discuss the Dark Triad: Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. How should a responsible marketer handle these problematic traits when trying to understand their audience?
I think if I explain our book writing process, because it is the balance between theory and practice. So Tom wrote the theories and then kind of handed over to me to start reviewing and adding examples in. And this was at the point where we met every Friday online, had a Zoom chat every Friday to kind of swap ideas and challenge each other. And actually it was the Dark Triad, and that's why I'm smiling, that was our first, not debate, but our first conversation around, should we include this? Should we not include this? We were very conscious of a book about psychology, not trying to apply our own bias to what we included or not as well. So we did include the Dark Triad, the potentially negative personality traits, but I think we framed it in there as like, this is real, this is how people do behave, but there are sometimes examples where they can be used effectively in marketing. For example, Red Bull applies to some of those kind of more extreme traits as well. So it was quite hard for us to balance and say, don't use these, but these are what people do exhibit in some senses.
I wouldn't, for example, say that you should actually run a marketing campaign to deliberately target people with high trait narcissism, for example. But the reality is that there are people out in the population that will be your customers who probably have some of these traits. So just being aware of that. We just thought we should lay everything on the table and say this is the full range of psychology that might be relevant to the interaction that you have with your customers, but we're not necessarily saying that you should necessarily use that in a particular sort of targeting way.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew Slessor, who's a very I think he's been watching for years. Andrew, thank you for that. And he says, "Good afternoon. King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne mentioned in the same sentence. You wouldn't hear that very often." but they do both have. They are both divorced. They are both, and I can't remember what the others are, but they are very similar in terms of that.
Yeah.
You cite Kapfer's definition of a brand as a name that influences buyers. What is the halo effect, and how can a brand leverage it to make overall messaging feel more credible?
So the halo effect is when you generally have a global evaluation of a person, or probably also a brand, which is generally positive, let's say, and that then affects how you evaluate specific attributes of that person or brand. So, if I really like Tim, for example, I think you're a great guy. I then might think, who should I ask about what kind of new car to buy? I know, I'll ask Tim because he'll probably know about new cars because he's generally a great guy and he knows a lot of stuff. Now, in reality, you might not know anything about cars or cooking or whatever it is I'm asking you about, but it's the fact that you get steered towards that general global evaluation of the person or brand that then leads to sometimes making mistakes according to particular attributes. And you can see that when certain celebrities are being used in campaigns that advertisers know. For example, David Beckham is a brilliant footballer, but he gets used in all sorts of campaigns that have nothing to do with football and has a positive effect for those brands because people have a general positive global evaluation of David Beckham.
There was a famous one, wasn't it? Was it Budweiser or something that just used his hand?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, and because it was just his hand, it was, and because of the tattoos on his hand, it was, people would know it was David Beckham.
Yeah. But I mean, there's all sorts of. Let's not go into the individual brands that he might not know too much about, but there's all sorts of things that he's presenting. I think Stella is the one that he's.
Oh, maybe it was Stella Artois. Yeah,
it could have been Stella. Yeah. But is David Beckham an expert in beer? Well, as far as I know, probably not compared to some people. But he's still an effective brand ambassador for that brand because of his general, positive association.
Your final section on choice focuses on why customers actually click buy. Can you explain the IKEA effect? How asking a customer to invest effort in product actually increases its perceived value?
Yeah, the IKEA effect is one of those, again, almost like the gut instinct or the nod along, like I'm aware of this. So for anyone that shopped in IKEA, you know that you are putting time and effort into your purchase because you take it home, you then build it. I think, Tom, you had an example a few weeks ago of like spending time with your son, building bookcases for his room and the time that you spend together. So it's about kind of putting that input in yourself, and that's effectively what IKEA is, isn't it? It's the flat pack, take it home, create it yourself.
Yeah, it could also be called the Lego effect, which just happens to have been coined the IKEA effect. There's also research, of course, showing that actually we also value the effort that others put into a product for us as well. That's called the labor illusion. So, when we're in a pizza restaurant, for example, and we see someone making a pizza, although we could probably make a pizza that tastes pretty similar for less money, we value the effort that we can see the pizza chef is putting into that because we can see it. And there's lots of brands that really make the most of the fact that they've put a lot of research and a lot of effort into building the product or service that we're engaging with. So it can work both ways. We value our own effort, and we also value the effort that others have put into a product for us.
And LinkedIn user there are other brands are available as BBC would.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So in Dove's Real Beauty, you highlight Dove's iconic campaign as a masterclass in psychology. How did addressing a fundamental tension in the audience's lives transforms them from a functional brand to an emotional movement? Question.
So this is one of those, classic case studies. People have heard about this. And what we did at the beginning of every chapter of the book was actually seek out a case study and someone to talk to and interview. So we had the amazing opportunity to speak with Daryl Fielding, who was in an agency role leading the Dove Real Beauty campaign over 20 years ago. And she talked about the research that they did with consumers, women, but also how they had to convince the men in the boardroom that, this was an issue. I think they actually did videos of their wives and their daughters to actually get them to understand the kind of self-esteem issues. And this is actually one of those campaigns that has just lasted over time because no one's messed with it. The issues have continued. They're still current in the world of AI and filtering and everything else. So it felt so right for us to include that one. And that is what we tried to include in the book, was the well-known case studies that, again, like the gut instinct, people could nod along to and go, oh yeah, this is an example in practice. We've covered B2C, B2B, big brands, small brands, not-for-profit. There's some charity case studies in there as well, because as marketers, we can often read the theory, but we actually want to know, what's the example of that? Give me an example. How does this work in practice? And then we can kind of get it and apply it to our own work as well. So Dove is just a brilliant example of so many theories that involved research, involved reading academic papers, involved testing, and has stood the test of time.
Marketers often feel they need to speak to both their speak to their customers as experts. How does the Dunning-Kruger effect cause both customers and marketers to misjudge their own competence?
Well, the Dunning-Kruger effect is about how people, misunderstand, their level of competence. There are lots of theories around how people sometimes make mistakes. There's the illusion of explanatory depth, which is also the same kind of thing, which is about how sometimes customers don't realize that they don't know a lot about a particular subject. So I mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting that we would highlight that to a customer, but you can make them feel like they perhaps know more about a topic than they perhaps really do. You can give them enough information that they can feel confident in making a purchase, for example, by putting the facts up front. Now, in reality, if I go to buy a car, for example, do I really know, how the pistons in the car work, how the cylinders in the car work, whatever kind of car it is I'm going to buy? Probably not, but I know enough about the size of the engine and whether it's petrol or diesel, and whatever it might be, I know enough about it, and I feel like I'm expert enough to make a decision. So it's about making customers feel confident. In reality, behind the scenes, that confidence might be misplaced. But I guess as a marketer, you need to make people feel that they've got that confidence to make a purchase.
So let's take this comment from LinkedIn user. When you're talking about brands, what make customers gravitate to them? Is it a combination of things, product, advertising, leveraging music, emotional pull, e.g. Christmas ads, etc.? Or is there a magic algorithm?
Oh, this is a topic for a whole nother session, isn't it? Rather than a quick answer. I think if we're thinking about brands, I was always taught in my agency days that a brand is a promise consistently delivered. It's something that builds up in the mind of the consumer over many, many touch points, could be over many years as well. So absolutely is a huge combination of things, whether it's the product itself, whether it's the advertising. I mean, if I look at my desk now, I have a number of Apple products on here. If Apple bought something else out next week, would I go and buy it? Probably, because I like the Apple brand and what it says about me and how great the products are and packaging and everything else. So I think this question is potentially more about how do you build a brand identity and what's in the mind of your consumer. And that could be everything from color through to packaging and pricing and, yes, music. There is no magic. It's a huge combination of factors.
I was going to say, sorry, there's lots of research out there showing the effect of branding over the long term. And even though you might think you're making a cognitive decision to buy a product in the moment, actually the brand has influenced you over the longer term. And there's a book on this called The Long and the Short of It by Les Binet and Peter Field about the same thing, really. So System 1, System 2, Daniel Kahneman thinking, actually the emotional attachment to a brand can lead to a longer term decision that you might think is based on a more rational decision-making process.
And the final question, you use using psychological hacks often raises eyebrows regarding manipulation. In your book, you do include a note about ethics. Where do you draw the line between helpful nudging and unethical manipulation?
I would just, for me, the line is about the products or services that we're dealing with and what we think it is right for society for us to be promoting or selling. So there are certain products that I wouldn't feel comfortable, applying psychology to promote, and other products that I'd feel perfectly comfortable to. So that's where the line is. For me, and actually in reality there are so many influences on any particular consumer that it's never going to be just the marketer alone, which is that sole influence. There are all sorts of things that affect a decision, but for me, that line is on the type of product or service that I'm promoting.
Thank you so much, Tom and Luan, for coming and talking about your book. So if people haven't noticed, unfortunately, Tom's face is covered with the QR code, but you've got to suffer for your art, Tom, haven't you? And that there's a code there, isn't there, that gives 20% off.
Yeah,
you've got to buy it from the Routledge website, though. It's not an Amazon code.
Yeah.
So Luan, where can people find you?
So on LinkedIn, I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, other social media platforms. But our weekly newsletter, the content all around this book is marketingandpsychology.com.
And Tom, where can people find you?
Again, LinkedIn is my main social channel. Aside from that, marketingandpsychology.com, as Luan said.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, sharing your insight. I noticed that we sold a copy, so that's we've done the job.
We have, and